Hello, I am the animator's friend, India Lombardi-Bello. Thanks for coming to my show, my podcast. If you're new to the show, it's a questionnaire format to get to know animators a little bit outside of the context of their work and the industry, getting them to know them as human beings, 24 questions at a time. On the show today, I have Anne Beal joining me. She is an award-winning animation filmmaker and multimedia artist who merges experimental animation, painting, and sound together. And I was very excited to hear a little bit about her recent trip to the Grammys with her husband, Christopher Zwar, who was nominated in the Best Instrumental Composition category for his album Communion. Best Instrumental Composition of 2025? Wow. Big. Something that I wanted to talk about prior to the episode. I don't know how all of you listeners are getting to this podcast, but if you go through Instagram, you know this, but if you don't go through Instagram, you don't know this. First of all, if you don't go through Instagram, go through my Instagram at Lucky Dog Face. That's where I post announcements about the show, little sneak peeks, what have you. But what I wanted to talk to you about today is that I do an exquisite corpse with each of my guests. Draw half of something, I fold it over, pass it to them, and then they finish the rest. And this is purely just because my Instagram, Lucky Dog Face, is my art Instagram. I've decided at this point in time to not split my creative work with my podcast because I feel like they're kind of all intertwined in a way. So because it's my art account, I didn't want my drawings to be kind of pushed aside by all these just like headshots of people. So I was like, how can I incorporate drawing into this podcast? And initially I was just going to like maybe draw the guests, but like, honestly, I'm not that, like, I don't know. I'm not that good like at drawing. Like, it would take me too much time, I think, and too much effort. And it's like, I just don't, I don't have the desire to do that. So I was racking my brain. And then, one day I just thought of an exquisite corpse. And I was like, what a cute idea. What a fun idea to do. And my initial idea was that it would be like half their headshot and then they finish the rest. And that I have done that for a couple of people, but not for everybody. So I sat down that day before she arrived, and my students will make fun of me for this one because I will not shut up about the deep sea angler fish that rose above into the light. I've been very obsessed for weeks. And so when it came time for me to draw, I drew her. I was just excited to see how maybe she would be, half fish and then half something completely different when Anne got a hold of her. And I was so kind of moved yet again, inspired by this fish yet again, and her power to inspire. Because when Anne did her drawing, first of all, it's still like the fish. Like what she ended up drawing was very abstract. So then it just fits with the fish perfectly and like just reads as a fish. But it's like she drew just like this beautiful, super feminine kind of flowing like peacefulness. And I just can't believe it. Because I do think it's important that that this fish is a woman. There's something about that feels very important. So I couldn't believe what she drew in response to just like, I don't know, maybe it was like a few little lines. And it just feels like it represents this fish so well and everything that it inspires in me. And clearly many other people. I'm not the only one who's obsessed with this fish, and not the only one to have some sort of tribute to her in drawing, or there's even poems written about her. So one, I just wanted to highlight the Instagram, but also this drawing activity, because I think it is a lot of fun, and it's fun to kind of have this quick collaboration with my guests. And I also feel like it's a nice representation of our conversation. I feel like, We talk a lot about balance, as you may have guessed, being uplifted and uplifting others, the rigor of the creative process. I feel like Anne is a great example of approaching being an animator in a slightly different way than maybe what a lot of people think. She really is operating, I'd say, more as like a fine artist. And tangentially related to our conversation, there is a very special guest who pops in partway through. So stick around and find out who that might be. Let's go to the conversation now with my newish friend, Anne Beal. I know that we already talked about this off mic a little bit, but you did recently just attend the Grammys with your husband. What was he nominated for?
I did. Chris got nominated for Best Instrumental Composition. He was really happy and honored to be nominated in this particular category.
Yeah.
And he couldn't believe it. He was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even really campaign.
Yeah.
I always have to remind him, well, I campaigned a little bit on your behalf, but, we didn't, hire a professional to rally people to vote for us. And I say us because I am appropriately credited as co-producer of the album.
Nice.
But it's Chris's work. I mean, it's amazing work. And he's been writing this for a really long time. And really proud of him.
And you also did the album art too, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got to do the album art, and we collaborated with a really great graphic designer, Denise Burt, and she took some of my paintings and made the cover, and she designed her own font, which I thought was so cool. I'm always interested in people who can design words, do things with words, and she did such a great job with all the text. And I wrote the lyrics for the final song, which is the only one with words.
And he was in the category with Andre 3000.
Yes, Andre 3000.
So cool.
Yeah.
Did you see him?
I did not. He wasn't hanging around at the nominees party, at least that I could see.
Yeah.
I was looking out for him though.
Yeah.
And I love Outkast, and I loved, Speaker Box and The Love Below was the album that came out when I was a senior in high school. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, do you remember that album?
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
So it was exciting to be in his category.
Yeah. And then you're a musician yourself too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you play?
I play the fiddle.
Cool.
Yeah. And I have a bunch of other stringed instruments that I like to just, pluck around on. But I started studying violin when I was 6 years old. And then when I was in my teenage years, I realized I wanted to have fun with the violin. So then it became a fiddle. And I started learning all different types of folk music on the fiddle.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. I love the fiddle. I love the violin in general, any string instrument that's of that size.
Yeah.
It just is I don't know. It's a really, really beautiful
Do you have any
sound.
Favorite fiddlers or music that features fiddle?
Oh, there's do you know, I think her name is Karen Dalton. She's just a singer. She's one of those people that I think she was kind of an outsider musician, and at the time that she was actually making stuff nobody knew about her, and then it's now people are interested in her work. But she has this one song. Oh, I'm trying to think of what it's called. It's the song if you looked her up, because it's just it's so stunning, her voice. But then at the end there's this violin that's and just I don't know, it slays me every time. Yeah.
I love that. It can be so effective.
I'm crying thinking about
I have songs like that. I have a song like that. My favorite living fiddler is Raina Gellert. And she's she lives in East Nashville now, but she went to college in the town over from where I grew up. And I used to go contra dancing. It was at Warren Wilson College in North Carolina. And she was a student there. And I used to go contra dancing every Thursday, and I'd see her. And at the time, I didn't realize she was this amazing fiddle player. But then probably 10 years later, I was getting really serious into studying old time fiddle. And I went to this fiddle camp, and I saw her, and she was the teacher. I was like, oh my gosh, I used to dance with her. But yeah, her fills, so in a folk song, often fiddle fills are like the little doodly doo, like in between. But when she does it, it's not like a fill. It's like this soulful expression of emotion. And she plays all these double stops, which is when you play more than one string at the same time. And there's this one tune, I think Scott Miller is the singer and songwriter, and she's the fiddle player. And it makes me cry every time I hear it. I'm like, oh my gosh. If I need a good cry, I'll just put on that song. It's called like Spanishburg, West Virginia. That's what it's called.
I also have, as part of this podcast, I have the Animators playlist where I compile songs that we end up talking about.
Amazing.
In the episode.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you're from North Carolina?
I am. So I was born in Asheville, North Carolina, and I grew up in the town over. It's Western North Carolina. So that was the region that got hit with Hurricane Helene in October.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a lot of family that's there still?
My family was there, but it's created this whole sense of guilt ever since the hurricane of like all the people who still live there. They went through this huge thing, and I was feeling a lot of like feelings I couldn't even explain from here in New York. And I think a lot of people have this strange feeling when there's a disaster that hits their town and they're no longer living there. It's like this guilt.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I hope your family's like doing okay.
My family was very, very lucky. They are all okay. All my best friends are okay. Like they have different levels of like destruction to their property and inconvenience as far as like everyone lost power, everyone lost gas and all that, you know, and water, access to fresh drinkable water was like the biggest issue. There were a lot of people that went through a lot worse. But yeah, like the River Arts District, which is a collection of artist studios in West Asheville. It was just this beautiful place that, you know, they were all just different kinds of, like there's like pottery studios and painting studios, and it's been built up for a couple decades now. But that's like, for the most part, just like washed away. And people are rebuilding, and it's been really cool to see how the community is really coming together. They're strong.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, you hate to see it happen, but it does end up, I mean, like, because I feel like I've been seeing this with like everything in California that's happening too. It's like, you really do see how like people come together in a way that they wouldn't have to normally. And like, it's on one hand, it's a real shame that like, you know, these things are happening, but on the other hand, it's kind of beautiful how the human spirit can kind of really show itself, you know, in those times that hopefully just sticks around even long after everything's like rebuilt, you know, like that. There's a lasting imprint of the generosity and the care that people have for each other.
Yeah. And they can put politics aside, you know, for at least a while until they, you know, I know like my stepsister put up this meme that I thought was hilarious and great. That was like, I'm really thankful for my redneck neighbor with a pickup truck and a four-wheeler, you know, because like they were the ones who were actually helping clear the demolition, you know, clear all the trees and brush and stuff. And yeah, it makes you appreciate people.
Totally. And then in terms of your animation, which we haven't talked too much about yet, would you consider yourself an experimental animator primarily?
Yes, I think that is fair. Perfectly accurate. I'm an experimental animator.
Yeah. And then you also improvise a lot in your work too, right?
Yeah.
How does that look for you? Because I think that for maybe perhaps a lot of animators, that's like, what? You know, how do you improvise in animation? Everybody thinks that you have to plan things out a ton.
Yeah.
You know.
Improvisation is so important. It's the foundation of really good work. Because even if maybe you're not an improviser, in my opinion, you should begin with that sort of mind, like a beginner's mind, and just experiment and play with your materials first. And what I like to do is give myself limitations, like rules, you know, like I'm going to paint this many frames to figure out, you know, what I'm doing. I'm going to limit my color palette to these 3 colors, and I'm only going to use 1 brush or 2 brushes. And then that allows for freedom in the creative process. And I go through I call it a play stage, or, you know, an experimental stage before every project, because I want to figure out just the right mood. And for me, that means, what kind of paper am I going to use? Am I going to include digital line work too? Or am I just going to go for total fine art animation? And that's not to say that digital art and fine art cannot coexist or be the same thing. I guess what I mean is, like, am I going to go with fully physical processes like paper, paint, ink, markers, pastels, stuff like that? Or am I going to maybe do painted backgrounds, but digital animation? And that all happens in the play stage. You could also call it the visual development stage.
It gives kind of like a playbook of how you can approach that kind of thing, especially if you're not used to it yourself, of like improvising with animation.
It's understandable that people would be afraid to improvise with animation because there's this cost of doing that. It's like the cost of time and the worry that the work that you're putting in is not going towards the final product. And I think there's always a balance between, at least for me, I'm still figuring that out. Like sometimes, like when I'm doing work for other people, I have to put a lot more limitations on my visual development time, but I do still have to go through that because otherwise I have nowhere to go. I have no foundation.
Yeah. And I think too, maybe it's like just changing your perspective on it to say that, like, kind of what you were just saying, that like there's a cost and you don't want to feel like you're not building up to what the end result is supposed to be. But like, if you can be more gracious to your process and be like, even if I don't end up using this, it ends up in the final thing, but not maybe tangibly, but like it was part of the process.
Exactly.
All right. So the questionnaire. Number 1, what's your sign?
My sign is Cancer.
Cancer. I can see Cancer in you.
Are you really into astrology?
I like it enough. Like I think I'm definitely not expert, but I like to talk about it and I like to think about it. But Cancer, they're like, they're like a little insular. Do you feel insular?
I don't know. I think that astrology is interesting, but it's not something I like to identify with for my own. Like, I just feel like I could have such a shitty personality, but like I try to not, so if everything is predetermined about my personality, that's just such a bummer to me. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to think about sometimes. I mean, I definitely have some Cancer-like qualities.
Number 2, what did you eat today?
Today, I ate an orange. I had a lot of coffee, which is as is my custom. I always have like 3 15-ounce mugs of coffee in the morning. And that's like, I don't eat until I've already drunk almost all the coffee. I guess it's kind of a form of intermittent fasting, but really it's just, I like to wake up and start creating. For some reason, I work best in the morning creatively. And then, so I just drink a lot of coffee. And then I love cereal, like cereal with milk, but I make special cereal, like gourmet cereal. I usually mix like 2 different kinds of cereals. Today it was Raisin Bran and Heritage Flakes.
Okay.
And I put coconut flakes. Well, coconut, they're not flakes. They're like the shreds.
Oh, yeah.
I put unsweetened shredded coconut.
Of course.
And and got to get the good stuff. Organic. Unsweetened.
Yes, of course.
Shredded coconut from Trader Joe's.
Of course.
And I like to get the walnut halves and break them myself. It's like there's something about this whole process that feels kind of medicinal, where you're like making this like stew, but really it's just cereal with a bunch of stuff on it, and then you pour milk.
I like the idea of cereal as stew.
Yeah. That's my best like thing that I cook is various stews.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how I feel about food.
Oh.
I love food.
Yes.
And I love eating really good food and fancy food. However, at my heart, eat to survive.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll make sense when I tell you what I had for lunch. I just like grab some handfuls of greens and put it on a plate. Sometimes that's what I eat for lunch, but this time I put like red wine vinegar on it because that's all I could find. This is also ridiculous, but I don't really like salad dressing.
I understand.
You know?
Yeah.
So I had like a 50-50 green salad with raspberries and Gruyere cheese that I cut up into little pieces and salt and pepper.
That kind of sounds lovely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
That was it. I do get a little embarrassed about my eating habits because sometimes they are just not good. But there's always PB&J. So because I realized this salad was not enough, so I made a half fold over PB&J. And that was pretty disappointing, actually.
No. The
bread we got at Trader Joe's was not very good today. So, subpar bread today. And it was good because it's just sustenance.
I mean, the impression that I'm getting is that you're eating very healthy, very clean. Not that you're eating bad at all.
I mean, some days, gosh, I think for the weeks leading up to the Grammys, I was trying to look good in a dress.
Yeah.
And so maybe I was like eating a little bit less because it's winter. Like, how can you be expected to look really hot in a dress in February? It's not fair.
Yeah. That's not body season.
Right. But I do like to have pre-cooked eggs. This is a recent life hack that I learned from a very successful, very busy executive lady who I was telling her about my difficulty feeding myself enough protein. And she's like, just get a bag of eggs, a bag of hard-boiled eggs, and, you'll never go hungry again. Just keep a bag of hard-boiled eggs in your fridge. And I do boil my own, but every now and then you just got to buy a pre-boiled bag.
Yeah, you got to make it a little easier on yourself.
Yeah.
And with this egg shortage, sometimes that's all that's even at the store because people don't buy them that much anyway. Yeah. I've been noticing that at least, that like Trader Joe's.
Right?
Which I would love to have a sponsor on this podcast because it comes up so often.
Yeah, right? I'm sure Lisa brought it up in her episode.
I feel like it comes up every episode. Yeah. Everybody's obsessed.
That's because you keep getting New York-based animators, and that's
true. It's true.
That's the only affordable grocery store chain.
Affordable and like good.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
good. Okay, number 3. And maybe we got a sense of this a little bit from your food chat. What does a day in the life look like for you?
So I wake up in the morning, I make a pot of coffee, and that's like my most special time. I try not to check my email. I try not to get on social media. I really like to just go do creative work. And that's kind of my time. So then after the coffee's done, then I'm like, okay, well, important thing, I've got to take out Maple, my dog, so she can go potty.
What kind of a dog?
She's the best dog. She is lots of kinds of dogs.
Yeah.
I think
it's the best combination in the whole world.
Yeah. She's mostly Australian Shepherd and cattle dog. We didn't do her DNA test, but one of her rescue siblings did their DNA test. So we know what her siblings' results were, which are presumably the same for Maple. But she's like a little dog, but she's really beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, she's hilarious, and she needs to go out several times a day. She's got a lot of energy, and Chris takes her out first thing early, and that gives me enough time to have my special morning work time. And then my break is taking her out, and then I get ready and I do the morning routine things. Delayed. And that's kind of like my little break time to get ready. And then I go back to work. And usually that's a transition point in my creative day. That's when I'll either start a different part of the process, whether it's like, okay, now I got to work on compositing, or now I need to edit sound, or now it can be, okay, now I need to start on the client work I'm supposed to be doing. And usually, I've had Maple for exactly a year. this week. And she's really helped me take more breaks and get outside and walk. And I feel like I have to, because I'm doing it for her health, I'm doing it for her. And she's just been so good for everything. She's just like, I just love having a dog.
Yeah. Little angel.
She's my best friend.
Yeah. They're the best.
Yeah.
They're the best. So, okay. So that's the day. That's what the day looks like.
Oh, yeah. I forgot the rest of the day, but that's okay. It's mostly working, going outside. And then, Chris and I figure out what we're going to do for dinner. And then, usually we watch a movie, or lately we've been trying to play more music, which is fun. He's been learning some folk music, like some jigs and reels with me.
Oh, nice. What neighborhood do you live in?
We are in Greenwich Village.
Oh, very nice. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool, very fortunate situation. Chris's family were Italian immigrants, and long story short, they've been in this apartment for like 100 years.
Amazing.
So
yeah.
we, he succeeded the apartment. He lived with his grandmother. So that's why we live in Greenwich Village. Yeah. I'm not secretly in finance.
It's so special though, to have that in the family. Yeah.
Yeah. His dad and uncles and aunt and great grandmother all lived there.
Amazing.
Grew up there. Yeah.
That's so nice.
It's pretty cool.
Do you feel out of step with like the other people that live in the neighborhood because it's a different crowd, or?
Yeah. I mean, we get along with the other old timers or the other rent control tenants. We're dwindling in numbers. But I did have a lovely exchange with one of the new tenants, just like in the hallway, just like a little, oh, isn't it chilly outside? Oh, yes, it is. Like I love little moments like that. Yeah. As a Southerner, I kind of live on those moments, and I used to have so many all the time. It's like, you talk to the person in line next to you at CVS and suddenly you know all about their daughter's upcoming wedding or whatever. But that doesn't happen as much in New York. People tend to keep to themselves or have their own business that I want to keep their own business. So I always appreciate when I get to chit chat with people in passing. And a lot of the people in my building are like, they're like on a headset, and they have like really like nice shoes and stuff. Anyway, it's a great place to live. It's fun. It's very loud. It's so different from where I grew up. I was surrounded by mountains and trees and grass, and sunlight was always filtered through trees. And here it's like sunlight is filtered through very tall buildings. And a lot of times I can't even see the moon, which is a strange feeling, looking up and being like, I wonder where the moon is. Anyway, sometime in the past year, I started making note of where the moon is. And I try to look for it wherever I am in the city, because I was starting to feel really, really detached from nature. And just that one simple thing of like just looking for the moon. And when I do find it, remember where I was and what time of year it was. It moves. Yeah. So anyway, that's been one way to try to remain connected to nature in the city.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. I'm from a rural place as well. So yeah, similar thing where it's like, it's very weird being in New York City. And I never even like wanted to necessarily. I mean, like as a kid, yeah, you're like, New York City, I'm going to go to the big city. But then like, you don't like think about what that actually means when you grow up in something so opposite to the city. And for me, it's just the hardest thing is the nature. Like there's like not real nature here. Like even if you go to like a big park, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So that's challenging.
Yeah, the big parks are cool, but they're also very curated.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And you still see buildings. Like, it's not like you feel like, oh, I'm really out there.
Yeah.
It's like, it's...
I'm really out there, but somehow the grass is very manicured and mown.
Yeah, it's hard. That's like the thing that I don't think I can accept lifelong, about being in the city.
But there's so many really cool people here, and artists and musicians and writers, and just, lots of fascinating people who put up with it because we're all making cool art.
Yeah, it's true. There has to be a way to have both.
Well, we're all
4. What's a song that you wish was written about you?
This is such a hard one. I've had all week to think about this question. I could not. I don't know. I
was thinking about it this morning too, because I love this question, but I was like, you have to like really think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought about too many, and then I realized most of the songs I really love are really messed up. Or like, like I was like, oh, what about Andrew Bird's song about this girl who wants to murder him? I don't know. I was just like, oh, okay, maybe not that one. But I do like that song. Let's see. There's a really sweet John Prine song where it's John Prine in a duet with Iris DeMent.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a really adorable, cute, silly love song.
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it's like both characters are singing to each other and they're kind of making fun of each other and their flaws, but they're lovable. And I think that's a good song. I think before I was in a serious relationship, I would like want that song to be like my future love life to be like that,
Yeah. Do you feel like you have that now?
I do. We make fun of each other all the time.
Yeah.
And we also collaborate. So yeah, we're like singing silly songs at each other and for each other on a regular basis.
Very sweet. 5, what's your latest fixation?
I guess part of my fixation is how to build a balanced work life. I tend to really throw myself into my work because there's some work that you really don't need to throw yourself into and you probably shouldn't throw yourself into, Also, I was really inspired recently by this blog post by a writer named Oliver Berkman. It's called the 70% rule, where when you are like 70% happy with what you're doing, finish it. Put it out into the world. Like when you are 70% pleased with what you're making for your job, send it, 70%, because it keeps you making stuff. It keeps you going. It gets you iterating. Like you put your thing out and then you're like, oh, they responded to it this way. Okay, cool. I'm going to do it again and try this other thing. And then you put that out. And I just think it's like a beautiful way to continue going and going and going, especially for people who tend to have a perfectionist problem.
No, that's great. I really like that. I feel like I've been learning that myself just because it feels so like vulnerable to like share something that you don't feel like is done or ready, but also it's like, well, what is done and what is ready, And I feel that way with this podcast. I was so eager to get it out there, but then at the same time I was like, oh, there's so many things I don't know yet. There's so many questions still. And at some point I was just like, I will never put this out if I don't just do it. Like it's mostly what you said. It's like it was maybe 70% figured out, and that was good enough. And eventually I just was like, it's okay. Just do it, just do it.
I'm really glad you did it.
Thank you. Yes. I'm glad I did too.
I've wanted to put out a podcast for like 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe this will inspire me to get it out there.
What kind of a podcast do you want to do?
So I've had this idea for a really, really long time. And I'll just go ahead and say it because maybe it'll make me do it. I really love speaking with old folks. I just love hearing what people's life stories are. I love hearing like how things were when they were our age. And specifically as an artist, I have benefited so much from the wisdom of older artists, specifically older women artists. But the idea is that it's hopefully I would have a co-host. Hint, hint.
I'd love to start my podcast empire.
Right? Yeah. I know. We'll have our own network. But the idea is like it'd be me and another person, and the women or non-binary humans that we interview have to be older than our moms or our mom's age or older. And when I first had this idea, my mom was 60. She's not 60 anymore. So the age goes up every year that I procrastinate. But we just, we ask them, hello,
Is there a special guest coming to the podcast?
It's a friend of the pod.
Braccio.
Oh, hello.
Former guest.
I knew you chacharones would still be at it. Hi.
Hi.
Hello, audience. Anne, you look too nice for a podcast. Nobody can even see how good you look.
Aw, thanks.
She
So
texted me this morning and she was like, "Are we filming?" I was like, no.
I was trying to decide if I should like wash my hair or not.
Have you guys covered the Grammys yet? Or?
Yeah, we did. We
Okay.
did.
Yeah,
we did.
that was in the preamble.
That was in the prequel.
Yes.
And the sparkly dress. Did we cover the sparkly
We
dress?
did not. I am so proud of my sparkly dress. I will say this is the first time I have gotten something altered besides my wedding dress.
Mhm.
And I actually altered this a little bit more than my wedding dress. Not really.
The Grammys are important.
Yeah, but it was like, it's like a black sequin gown. And, you know, I'm actually quite modest, but I was like, I'm going to go for it. Like, I'm just getting older every year. I might as well wear a low cut dress.
Yeah.
And so it was like low cut and it had sort of a sweetheart neckline and it was really fun. And I wore 4-inch heels, which
Wow.
was simultaneously brave and dumb.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever.
Yeah, I'm trying to no.
I feel like when heels are too high, I'm like, I don't know how actually anybody can wear them unless like the only thing I can think of is like maybe people who have big feet can wear because
I do have big feet. I do have big feet. It's true.
like their feet can like bend more
maybe
because there's
they're
more
really-
foot there. You know?
I don't know. I think it's training from a young age because that's like when if you like go to Italy and you're like, oh yeah, y'all started wearing these when you were like 7.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because I had a roommate from Sardinia and she
Mhm.
would like, I mean, she was very short and she just would bop around in 4-inch heels like the way I moved in sneakers. Like I just was astounded by her constantly.
That's very impressive. But then they
Yeah.
also probably have triangle shaped toes.
Yeah, the feet are probably
Oh my God.
ugly.
And then you just got to keep wearing the heels because then other shoes
Yeah.
don't fit you. I'm glad we covered the important topics.
Yes.
What question number were you on?
We're on latest fixation. And she was telling me about a podcast idea that she has.
Oh my God, you guys are only on 5?
Yeah.
We're just, gabbing, I suppose.
Oh my God, I can't wait until it comes out. So, okay, I don't want to keep you guys from question 6. So I'm going to release you back to your
Right.
intimate podcast environment.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy to have this moment. with
Yes.
you.
It was great to have a guest appearance, celebrity guest appearance.
Yeah, but you do have to play just, I'm putting this on the record. If you do want to include my voice, you need to play like a little bit music intro before I enter, or like when I enter, like the Seinfeld theme.
Yes, oh my
Or
God.
like Kramer's sound effect for when he enters the
I
room.
will figure that out.
Okay.
Yes, I think
So
that would be
it's a requirement
hysterical.
for Okay, hopefully see you guys.
All right.
Enjoy.
Bye. Thank you. Hilarious. So 6, what is your greatest extravagance?
My hair has been going gray since I was like 18. It's always been long and it gets really dry and like breaks out. I mean, not breaks out, breaks off. I guess my latest extravagance is shampoo. I will buy $3 body wash, but my shampoo is very nutrient rich.
Mhm. Good. It's important. Number 7, what were you like in high school?
Exhausted. It's hard for me to think about what I was like in high school or to think of myself as that age because I've been through so much since then and done so much, changed so much, done a lot. I was very ambitious in that, I loved school. I genuinely loved school. I loved researching. I loved doing my research papers. As strange as it is, when the teacher would assign a research paper, I would like start working like that day. I would like figure out my research topic and I would go to the library and have like a brainstorm sesh and like pick all the books on that topic. I just really loved that part of school. But on the other hand, I had really, really, really bad acne. So for most of high school, people say like pizza face or like that's how my face was. And I had some other stuff going on too. And a lot of that stuff was sort of like under the surface or suppressed. And instead I would throw myself into my art and into sports. And so I just did all the things. I wish I would have gone to more parties. I was very scared of parties. Like I was really socially awkward, and I was always afraid I would get in trouble at a party. I don't know. I just wish I would have let loose more and had more fun. But yeah, I did love school. I had some really wonderful friends. I mean, high school is really hard, I think, for most kids. Yeah. It's a really emotionally vulnerable time. It's a time where a lot of things we can see as not that important now felt so important. How, like, we were all so concerned with how other people thought of us. And I'm so glad I'm not that age anymore. I was, so like, strangely enough, I was on the homecoming court. And like,
Lisa said the same thing. She was like, I wasn't popular, but I was on the homecoming court.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
I know. I just, in my mind, I was such a freak and like such a nerd, and I was okay with that. I mean, I was very much an artist from a really young age. I knew I was going to be an artist and also a musician. Mm-hmm. But I do remember the feeling of being in a library and like seeing new books and like just I just loved that feeling of gathering information and spreading it out on a table, and like, you know, I miss that, the physical part of research. Now we do everything on the internet, or a lot of it, and that's why our libraries are suffering. That's one of the many reasons. Yeah. So that's my PSA. Go support your local library. Yeah. Go to the library.
I feel like I was talking to Michael Dondero, but they were saying that when you would do research that way, even though maybe it was a more cumbersome process, there was so much knowledge that you would encounter that you wouldn't normally otherwise, because you're kind of taking a little bit more of a stab in the dark.
Exactly. And you have to like go past certain chapters, and maybe that's not the chapter that was relevant for you on this research paper, but maybe on the next one. Yeah. Or maybe that knowledge will come in handy, and then you're like, oh yeah, I remember that was on this shelf, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I mean, I take that approach to art. Yeah. Too. I work a lot in physical books. Mm-hmm. And what I did not realize at the time is called erasure poetry, where you circle some words and paint over other words and stuff. Like, I've been doing that for a really long time. Didn't know it had a name. Anyway, I love books.
What kind of books do you like?
Gosh, I like them for different reasons. I really like books from the 1950s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that tell women how to be. And what to do, and how to attract a man, and da 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 da. Like, I think those books are really fascinating, and I've been using them a lot in my work to push back against, and to just be like, oh yeah, what purpose does this serve? Yeah. Why? So I love going back into old books and investigating things that have changed. Mm-hmm. And recently I really enjoyed reading Miranda July's book, All Fours. Okay. Have you heard of that one?
No, but I love Miranda July.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do too.
Number 8, what is the first work of art of any kind that made a meaningful impact on you as a child?
There are so many.
You can list them all.
Oh, man. I know. I was trying to think. I was like, don't say Van Gogh. Don't say Van Gogh.
You can
but
say
I think
Van
I have to say Van Gogh. I mean, gosh. I'll start by saying there was this really cool after-school program called Odyssey of the Mind. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay. So many people have not heard of it, but I'm glad you've heard of it. But for the listener, I guess I'll try to explain. So Odyssey of the Mind was this amazing after-school program. It was based in drama and like wordplay, and there were all these other factors like set building and going to the Chamber of Commerce and interviewing people. It was like just this whole intellectual smorgasbord of things. So we were like a team of 7 kids, and I started doing this in 2nd grade. And our theme that year, it was like, you have to pick a playwright and you have to pick an artist, and it's designed to make inquisitive kids like learn things. Mm-hmm. And our artist was Renoir, and we had to learn about Impressionism, and then we had to like design a product. But I remember I did as like a 7-year-old, I did copies of Girl with a Watering Can. But yeah, I guess the work of the Impressionists really influenced me. I love the way they used color and light and that their brush strokes were so free and visible. And I had a wonderful art teacher, Elisa Melorano, and we're actually like best friends now.
Aww,
She's in her 70s. But when I was 5, she was like 40-ish. And there were like maybe a dozen kids in her class. We'd go every Tuesday after school, and she would give us specific assignments. But if we didn't feel like doing that day, we could just do whatever we wanted. And I did a lot of master studies of Impressionists. And then I also got really into, for some reason, I got really into Titian. And I got really into John Singer Sargent for a while too. All these like men painters. But I discovered Mary Cassatt and like Frida Kahlo. I have a lot to be really, really thankful for that I had as a young kid, as far as like support in artists and things that I got to learn and be exposed to.
Number 9, when did you feel most discouraged about pursuing your creative path?
Well, I never really felt like I had a choice. I knew I was always going to be an artist, but I think I was discouraged at sometime in my 20s, probably, when I was like, dang, I can't be like a virtuosic fiddle player and a really amazing animator at the same time. Like, I guess I can just settle for like pretty good fiddle player, and like I'm just going to keep trying to be the best filmmaker I can. And it ebbs and flows. Recently, I was getting really discouraged that I haven't put more energy into the fiddle. And I've been really missing my friends I jam with. We have these gatherings and just play. But tomorrow I'm going to a jam, so that's exciting.
Good.
Yeah, it can be discouraging when you realize that your time and energy are limited, and you gotta make some decisions sometimes to put certain things not on the back burner, but prioritize them slightly less. I have had times when I've tried to really write out a schedule for myself for the week where I budget in practice time on my fiddle, and that can be sort of effective. But yeah, I guess that's what I've been getting discouraged about lately.
You're finding that balance.
Exactly.
It's like, yeah, it's also finding the balance between all of your creative desires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Number 10, what character from an animation do you relate to the most?
I just heard John Mariana's episode where he was talking about Alice in Wonderland, and I don't know what character he said, or I don't know if that's the one he chose for that.
I think he did.
Did he say Alice?
No, he said the dodo.
The dodo. That's so funny. I guess I was thinking I'm a mix between Alice, the Cheshire Cat, and the Mad Hatter.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't believe 3 interviews in a row people are picking Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so
pretty
funny.
Great. I mean, I also, for some reason, identify with Scar from The Lion King, because I felt like he was like really clever and cunning. Maybe like my dark side is more like Scar, like really, I don't know though. I really like the voice actor. Wait, who did Scar? That's like gotta be like a really famous actor. I don't know. I just thought the way he moves, like the way he's animated, he's like so slinky and graceful, and maybe artistically, maybe not like as a personality, but
as a vibe,
as not even a vibe. I don't know. Maybe just like he's a foil. Like maybe I aspire to have a few more Scar-like qualities and like a few less Alice in Wonderland qualities.
Yeah, somewhere between Alice in Wonderland and Scar.
He's like, he gets what he wants.
Oh, God. Number 11. What characteristic are you most drawn to in other people?
A willingness to engage. I think you've got to be open and receptive to another person's thoughts and feelings, and that's a way to have a conversation. It's really difficult to be in a room with someone who's totally closed off and doesn't look at you or has a judgment about you without knowing you or knowing who you are. I think that's, not to get too philosophical here, but I do feel like that's a greater problem that we have in our culture.
No, I agree.
People not being willing to engage.
But I feel like there's something related to like the social media-ness of our lives that there's like, there's such a quickness to judge and to be like, I have this person completely figured out and they're X, Y, and Z, you know? And like, I feel like when I was in my mid-20s, I feel like I was more like that, more judgmental. And then I went through some stuff where I felt like I was being severely judged by some people in my life. And I was like, oh my God, I never want to do that to people. That's ridiculous. You know, it's like, people are so like complex and like,
everybody's got a backstory.
And it's also like the yin and yang of it all too. It's like everybody's a little good, everybody's a little bad, you know. It's very complicated, you know, and it's not our place to judge as human beings, I think. 12, what is your favorite feature animation?
I thought about this one a lot too. I have two. I have to say them both. The first one is Consuming Spirits by Chris Sullivan. That one came out in 2012. And I love it because, for many reasons, but I love the tactile nature of the work and that you can see the artist's hand. I love the format, which is sort of like centers around this like rusty old character who's like a radio announcer guy. And he's an alcoholic and he's got a lot of issues. And so does everyone in this town. It's like this town. I don't know if it's maybe Pittsburgh, because Chris Sullivan is from Pittsburgh. But it's like, I guess, built as like a Rust Belt town or something. But it's stop motion puppetry, paper puppets. And then it's done on a multi-plane and a lot of scenes. So there's like painted animation. And then he goes into parts where it's pencil on paper animation, and he did a lot of the sound too. Oh, and I also know Chris pretty well. I worked with him at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago when I taught there. He's the one who hired me and got me into teaching, actually. I taught experimental animation there as well as drawing for animation 1. But yeah, I knew Chris's work well before I knew him, and this feature film is just like the colors he uses are just so spot on for the mood he creates. And I think that's something that can be difficult for some filmmakers to achieve, is like nailing the mood and the color scheme. And I just feel like the whole piece is a mood. It's like also the longest feature animation ever made or something.
How long is it?
It's like really long. I don't know. It's also apparently Wes Anderson's favorite film.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But if you watch it more than once, you start to see a lot of the silly inside things and the dialogue and in the and then the work. But I love how the puppets are so human and so kind of gross sometimes. Yeah. And then my other favorite one is Signa Bowman's film Rocks in My Pockets. Oh, okay. She does such a wonderful job of like talking about the family history of how the mental health issues kind of intertwined with all the other just like human and family dynamics. And I love how Signa narrates it. And I think it's a really impactful film, and it talks about something that I'm really passionate about, which is mental health and mental illness, and just humanizing it, making it normal, making it something we can laugh about. Yeah, it's a great film.
Do you teach now?
I currently am not actively like a faculty member anywhere, but I do workshops and visit colleges, and I also do my own workshops at community centers.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And teach all ages. I taught for like 10 years. I am waiting for the right time to get back in there and teach more. And I love being around students, and I love teaching, and I also just love planning my classes and like planning lessons. I also just love explaining things to people that they actually want me to explain. Like, I try not to be like one of those people who goes around and like tells people the best way to do things. But I was trying to explain a pretty complex card game to a pair of friends the other day. And they were like, actually, you did a pretty good job explaining that to us.
Yeah.
I was like, yes.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. 13, what's your favorite short animation?
So hard. I forgot. I didn't even think about this one because I was like, I'm never going to be able to answer it. But I will tell you one of the many favorites I have, and that is Joanna Quinn's film Girls' Night Out, because I just love her drawing style. She draws these like very round and circular and lively characters. Her work is the best example of traditional animation that feels lifelike, but is not prescriptive, and it's not trying to be too realistic. It's just like the essence of movement. And I think it's so beautiful. And then, there's a lot of like silly, like, silly jokes. There's like a male stripper. It's like these dowdy British women going to girls' night out or whatever. I was trying to say British women are dowdy. What I meant was her characters are intentionally supposed to be like, oh, we don't get out much and we're, wearing our moo-moos basically and da-da-da. Anyway, I love her drawing style. And I love that you can see the pencil marks. And yeah, it's just an amazing study. Like if I were going to do a master's study of a contemporary animator, I would try to copy every frame of Joanna Quinn's work.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen that one. It sounds lovely.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
It's very vivacious.
14. Which animator do you most admire?
This is such a hard one. There's so many. I really love the work of Georges Fitzgerald. His work has inspired me for a really, really long time. Just the way he uses paint, and his camera movements are amazing. It's amazing how you can just kind of like go into his world and go in circles, and then all of a sudden you're on a plane, or all of a sudden you're in a field. Love that about his work. And especially because it's painted. But I also love Susan Pitt. Susan Pitt is probably my favorite animator. She almost came and visited my classroom when I was teaching at SAIC.
Yeah.
But she was too sick. Yeah, and she died not too long after that. Very sad. Yeah, I know. I was like, my idol is coming to my classroom. Yeah. But I love how she had her work in a variety of places. She did stuff with the Whitney Museum. She found a way to use her own aesthetic in many disciplines, many ways. And I definitely aspire to be that way and to do that. And I think it really takes a lifetime to get all your, like, it's good to try to not be impatient, not be in a hurry. Because I can look at both of their work and be like, oh man, why am I not there yet? I do my best not to compare myself to animators I admire or to other people in general. But yeah, it's inspirational for sure.
15. I should have prepared more for this one myself. Because when Lisa and I did this question, we were like, wait, what? The question being, what do you consider the most overrated virtue? But then we were like, what are the virtues? And we had it very broad of just like, what do we think virtues are?
I've traditionally accepted virtue. I have one. I would say humbleness. Because I think that gets too dialed in, especially to people who are not men. I mean, like, I feel like when you're too humble, you actually can hold yourself back. I have this problem too, where it's like, I'll hold myself back because I don't want to make other people uncomfortable, or I don't want to. There's this idea that like you shouldn't take up too much space.
Yeah.
And the space is infinite. Like, why are you worried about taking up too much space? It's one thing to like dominate a conversation when you're not supposed to. That's one thing. But then it's quite another to like enter a room and already feel like you don't deserve to be there, you know?
Yeah. I say that to my students all the time. It's just like, be confident and use confident language when you talk. Like, don't be like, oh, like I kind of do this.
Yeah, don't
like,
put doubt in other people's minds.
Yeah.
It's not already there.
Yeah, it's very important. And yeah, it can be hard, but I think once you get like over the hump of that, you're good. Because then you feel like, I think that you can feel validated
Yeah, but it is circular. I would say it comes and goes. Like you might one day feel very confident and then the next week you're down on yourself again.
Sure. Yeah, it's true.
Something we have to learn continually.
Yeah. 16. Do you have any regrets?
I try really hard not to dwell in regrets. I think it can be a dangerous place to live. Once I've processed a past event, I work really hard to let it go and move on. I'm not always successful at that, but I don't know. I think my biggest regret is letting regrets bring me down.
That's a good one. That's a worthwhile regret, I think. Yeah. 17. What's something you believe to be overrated?
Eyeliner.
I
mean, yours looks amazing. But like for me, I think, if you're not good at eyeliner, you don't have to do eyeliner.
It is hard. I mean, I've been doing this for years and years and years and years, but it's hard. I mean, every day it's like I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, right? You never know. I had a period of time where I tried to do it.
Yeah.
And eventually I was like, I am never going to make it out the door if I keep trying to wear eyeliner.
Yeah. And then when it is like the cat eye, like you need like the heavy duty kind of like, I mean, I don't like
if you
waterproof
mess up,
stuff.
Then you have to start over.
You have to I put on like concealer first and then I do my eyeliner, which maybe I should just do it the other way. But like if I had to like take it off, it's like a big deal because it messes everything up then.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you're just converting me. Sometimes I do think, because you know how Gen Z is always like, this is out now.
Yeah.
And I think that like there was that trend, it was called like clean girl aesthetic or something like that. And it was kind of like a no makeup look. So it was just like clear skin, maybe some blush, dewy.
It was very COVID. I feel like that was very like 2021 was like,
which makes sense because people aren't gonna put on like a ton of makeup.
Yeah,
but they want to still like look nice, I guess.
Well,
but,
sometimes you gotta just like look in the mirror and not feel dead.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, yep. So sometimes I'm like, is the cat eye done? But I'm like, I don't.
No, it looks great. I think it looks great on you.
I think it accentuates like my natural eye shape in a nice way, you know?
Yeah,
so like I would have a hard time giving it up.
Yeah.
If it went out of fashion.
Yeah. Well, but if you were not good at it and you felt the pressure to do it, then it would be a different story.
Yeah. Are you wearing a little eyeshadow?
Yeah. I have this routine I like to do with my eyes. And it's just like one brush, 3 colors, and waterproof mascara.
Gotcha.
That's my look.
Yeah, it suits you. Because I've been admiring the eyeshadow. I'm just like, thanks. It's like nice, like shimmer. You know,
Thanks.
It's nice. Yeah. Who needs eyeliner?
Yeah, I think also it's funny because I think sometimes people who don't wear makeup or don't appreciate makeup, like my lovely husband will sometimes be like, you don't need makeup. I'm like, well, I enjoy putting on makeup. It's kind of like a little meditative routine for me. You know, it's like a self-care routine. I think that wearing makeup doesn't make you shallow. It means you're doing something that makes you feel good. And also I'm like, do you think I'm putting this on for you? No, I'm not putting this on for you. Like, I'm putting this on for myself. My grandmother used to say, we dress up for the other women in the room.
Oh,
that was her
cute.
take. I'm not doing this for my husband. I'm doing this for the other.
Yeah, I don't know like what is up with men. I think they think that that's like a helpful comment. Like so many men make it. They're just like, you don't need it. I like you better without makeup. And it's just like, shut up. Nobody asked you.
Yeah, no one asked you. And also, anyway.
Silly. 18. What's something you believe to be underrated?
Experimentation. I feel like in your work, you got to just try things out, like try new things out and don't judge yourself. Like for me, it's like I've got to silence the inner judge. I just tell them like, hey, thanks, but I don't need you right now. I'm going to just experiment and create. And there needs to be time in the day where I'm making things that are not for anyone else.
Mhm.
I'm just messing around.
Agreed. And yeah, I've been thinking a lot lately about, I feel like somebody told me this. It's not my idea, but like you can't be the artist and the critic at the same time.
Yeah.
You have to be the artist in one moment and then take some kind of a break and come back at another time as the critic, and just have those be two separate souls within you, and not muddy the waters there.
Yeah.
19. What is your most life-defining decision?
Moving to New York City.
Yeah.
Leaving Chicago.
When was that?
Leaving my life there. That was in February of 2017.
What do you feel changed in your whole life that like of moving here, that like it's like nothing's been the same since?
I mean, everything changed. I had a really stable community of musicians I played with all the time. I was in a couple bands.
Mm-hmm.
I was fiddling every day. And I was teaching at SAIC. I was in a very stable relationship. It was a great time, like in my 20s. And I went to an artist residency, McDowell. And I started like feeling different. Like I don't know, I had sort of felt a transition before I got there, but then it was like having so much alone time. I was there for like 7 to 8 weeks alone in the beautiful wilderness of New Hampshire in the snow. And I met Chris there. And it was a really difficult decision. And my first couple of years here, I was in Brooklyn, really hard. And I was dealing with a lot of mental health stuff too. And I was like, I've just ruined my life. What have I done?
Aww.
Like, this was a terrible decision.
Aww.
But then I don't know. I had faith that like it was going to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris stuck with me and, put up with all the, I'm sure what was like very difficult emotions. And I've made a life here in New York. And I'm glad I did it. I think I'm always trying to grow, but sometimes there are growing pains.
Yeah.
And came out the other side.
So did you move to New York City because of Chris?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had always been actively avoiding New York City. Like after I graduated from RISD, a lot of people were migrating to New York. And I was like, I have no desire to be in that city because I had come for Animation Block Party a few times for some of my films and had come. And every time I visited New York, I was like, this place has too much energy. Like, this is not a place that I can be. This is not a place I can thrive. But yeah, it's also a place where I've grown exponentially as an artist. And I've met some really wonderful people. And it was a good decision. It was just a hard one.
Yeah. Big ones are usually not easy ones.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So then 21 is your surprise question. And it's actually kind of related to, you were just talking about the McDowell residency, but I saw that you did a residency at Yaddo. And Yaddo is kind of near where I'm from. It's because Saratoga. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, Yaddo is always like, oh, like that's like a really hard one to get. And it's a really special one. And I think isn't it like a lot of writers do Yaddo? Yeah. So I want to hear all about it. All about like, I mean, you don't have to go like literally like all into applying it for it, but I'm just like curious about like, what was the application process like? What were you putting forth? And then what was the actual experience of being at Yaddo like?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The good thing about artist residencies is once you put together your application for one residency, you can use it for other ones, and just like alter it a little bit. With this one, I was applying with Chris as a duo, as an artist duo, because he was working on his album and I was working on animation with the album. And it's images of your work and like videos of your work, and you got to answer a few questions. And yeah, I was very fortunate to get in. I think it probably helped that I had been to McDowell, as a accomplishment. But also, I don't know how many artists were there. I would say around 20-ish when I was there. They have this like big mansion that was under construction while I was there, so there weren't quite as many artists. But it's been finished. It's fixed up again. So now they have like the Yaddo mansion.
It was like a pleasant experience?
Yeah, there were a lot of really amazing artists there. Like I was there with a great documentary filmmaker, Lana Wilson. She was working on, she might have been working on that Taylor Swift documentary. I don't know what she was working on.
That's so funny.
She's so great though. Yeah, the really wonderful part about artist residencies is you form good relationships with people and you continue to talk to them and check up on what they're doing and hopefully see them again.
In some cases, you meet your future husband.
Yes, I know. It's true.
It's amazing.
It's true.
Yeah. Really special. And yeah, I don't know a lot of animators who do residencies. So I was like, just, curious to like hear a little bit about your experience with that. Because I think that like, for somebody who's independent and has their own kind of practice, that makes perfect sense. You're an artist like anybody else that's like an independent artist is an artist. And it's nice to have that time and that space to go somewhere and just focus and be taken care of.
Totally.
And connect with other artists of all different disciplines. But this is the problem. I feel like animators don't get treated like a regular artist,
Yeah. Well, it helps if you have your own film going on or if you have your own project. I think that's a really important thing for any animator to do is have their own project. And it doesn't even have to be a film. I mean, a lot of animators are really great at comics, like writing comics or making illustrations. And it doesn't matter what it is. Your project doesn't have to be an animated film. It can be anything. In my opinion, this is really good for your artist psyche, for your art practice, but also just like for your own happiness is to have a precious creative act that you do that's your thing, has nothing to do with client work, has nothing to do with school assignments. This is just a thing you do. And whatever that thing is, you can develop that into a project that you can apply to a residency for. And I think it's too easy for some animators to fully identify with their career and their like freelance work as like being their work. And it's like that really just hurts after a while. I think that's why you get burnout. That's why I get burnout, at least. So I always try to keep something for myself.
Yes. Balance.
Yeah, totally.
Balance. Exactly. I think we might have to call the episode Balance with Anne Beal. All right, 22. How do you want to die?
On a porch with a fiddle in my arms and my best friends by my side. We all decided we're going to outlive our husbands. So, like, he's already dead. It's cool. We've talked about it. But I'm playing the fiddle on a porch, and it's a sunny day, and I'm, like, sitting in my chair, and I'm, like, 97, and I just, like,
very specific.
Lie down and die in the sun.
Oh, that's so nice. I love that Beautiful. 23. Who should I interview next?
There's a bunch of people I'd love to hear talk on your podcast. Amanda Benudo. I'd love to hear
Second vote for Amanda Benudo. Yeah.
Super great. Pilar Garcia Fernandez Sesama. They are amazing. Really great animator. Tiffany Cooper.
Okay.
Yeah, Tiffany Cooper.
Okay.
She's so cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from her.
Yeah. Thank you. Last question. What do you want to plug?
Well, I am working on a film. I've been working on it for quite a long time. We were talking about earlier, the balance. I've been working on it between teaching gigs, freelancing gigs, whatever. But I've had a little time away from it, and I'm back at it, and I'm feeling really excited about it. And it's a lot of painted animation. There's puppets. There's erasure poetry in books. There's lots going on. And of course, I do all the sound. But I think I'm going to finish it soon. I've had some time away, and it really helped me with the structure of the film and thinking about the material and like what I'm even trying to say. I've had more clarity on it in the last few months than I've had in the last 8 years.
Wow.
I think I've been working on it for longer than that. I hate to say I started working on it in like 2015 or 16.
Yeah.
I've made plenty of other films in between, but those other films I've been making have been very much for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keep a lookout for my new film.
Does it have a name?
I think it's going to be The Silver Spoon.
Okay.
It's gone through a lot of iterations, but
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure it'll be called The Silver Spoon.
Okay.
And I have a lot of writing that I've been doing.
Mm.
So I don't have a Substack yet, but I have a Patreon. But if you're interested in like following along with my filmmaking process, you can find me on Patreon.
Beautiful. The Animator's Friend is recorded and edited by India Lombardi-Bello, with facilities provided in part by the MFA Computer Arts Department at the School of Visual Arts. Music by Crank and Cloutmeyer Evans, designed by Sawyer Rippon. Interstitial music from Guitar Master on freesound.org. Special thanks to Vinay Nandargi, Lisa Labraccio, Michael Dundero, Darren Santamaria, Christy Kish, Rebecca Wong, my mom and dad, Lisa Lombardi-Bello and Mick Bello, Nicholas Fortune Hagen, and Rowan Scott Hornack.